This is gonna sound like a punchline, so I'm gonna go with it. What is the difference between a French tack, a swing tack, and a bustle loop? Nothing. And we're gonna do them all right now. Let's take a look. What we're looking at here is the back of a wedding dress. So we're gonna create a bustle loop. This is going to be a loop that will fasten up here onto this clear button that's really hard to see at the top of the zipper. This allows us to pick up the train after the ceremony, but before the reception. The thing is that the way that we create the bustle loop is exactly the same procedure as a French tack or something called a swing tack. So if you've ever noticed that your lining in pants or skirts is connected to the outer fabric, but it's not sewn quite together, it's got that little chain of thread in between it, that is what we're talking about. French tack, swing tack. It's actually the same principle almost as making a friendship bracelet. So what we're gonna do is I've got doubled over twice, so 4 strings of thread in here. I want mine to be really nice and strong. And then I've got my hand inside of the dress here, and I am holding up all of the layers of the center back of this dress together. Finally, I have a safety pin also holding all of those layers together because I'm trying to keep these seams on top of each other. That's more aesthetic. And then this is my thumb right there, and that's kind of pinching everything in place as well. We're gonna start by taking a little stab right there, going through all of our layers and then coming right back up until our knot comes all the way to the fabric there. And then I'm just gonna loop it through so we have a nice little secure. Okay, cool. Now, I'm gonna take one more bite through, but I'm not gonna pull the loop all the way through, okay? Now I'm gonna take my hand out and we're gonna stick our hand right through that loop that we haven't quite pulled through. So again, we just took the needle straight through that spot again, and see how I could keep pulling it and making it tighter? We're not gonna do that. We're just gonna put our little hand straight through that. Cool. Now, I'm gonna use my elbow over here to hold down the fabric and my elbow over here to hold down the fabric. We really want as supportive a surface as we can get with this, and you'll see why in just a moment. I'm also gonna leave that safety pin in as an extra support for holding those layers together because we're sewing multiple layers right now. Okay, now, this is my thread with the needle attached, and this is my loop, and I am just going to grab it and slide it down. Okay, do you see that? Back again. Loop, grab, slide it down. We're essentially creating a chain of knots, and we're trying to keep those knots really nice and tight and close to each other. And the weight of the thread and the amount of threads we're using are going to dictate how strong this is, along with how tightly we're pulling them. As I'm pulling this through, I'm pulling with both my left hand and with my right hand, and then holding the fabric down with both arms. This is a really involved process of everything, all of the tension, all together all at once. Can you just barely see how that's starting to look like a braid or kind of like a little friendship bracelet? So now, if we were just creating a swing tack or a French tack to hold layers of fabric together, like your pants, this is where we would stop. Because all we need is that chain of knots. And we would put the needle directly through the loop and pull tight. But we're not ready to do that. For a bustle loop, we're going to take it a little bit further. We're going to keep going until we've created a long enough strand of knots to make a loop that will go over that button I showed you. So that button is a 1/2 inch. So I'm definitely going to go a little bit further. The key here is trying to hold the fabric down while you're pulling these knots tight, I will tell you, you are gonna get a little bit of an arm workout. Okay, we're definitely getting there. I'm just gonna flip it over and see how close we are. Not bad, but still a little bit further here. Couple more. This can also, just a few of these, if I had stopped down here, that could be used as a replacement bar or eye for a metal hook. That's another one I like to use it for. It's clean, it's invisible, and you can use whatever thread color you're already using for the garment to match it perfectly instead of having a metal loop. I really like that. Okay, let's see. Let's test it one more time. That looks great. That's the size of my loop there. Love it. Okay. Now, let's pull our little loop out. There we go. And we are ready to take our needle through. So now, once we put the needle through our loop, instead of how we were pulling loops through with our fingers, as we tighten, oh, I don't want that to get tangled. As we tighten here, that is gonna knot that off. Now we're ready to complete the loop by putting our needle down through all of the layers. I've got my hand back inside of the garment here, which is gonna grab that needle. And then I'm gonna gently pull through, trying to make sure I don't tangle anything. Oh, that looks great. Look at that nice little loop. That's perfect. That's gonna be nice and strong to go up over that button. Now, let's flip to the inside and we'll just tie that off. Great. And I'm just going to take a nice little bite from the inside there. And again, I just want to keep my little threads from getting tangled. And then slide my needle through. And one more time, take a little bite of fabric. Little bite of thread, and then hide my little tails. And that is it. All right, let's put that loop over and see how it looks. Perfect. Oh, I love that. Zip this bad boy up. And then up we come to that button. See how that just loops right over that? Really nice and strong. Oh, that's good. So that's gonna sit right at her waist and pick all of this train up. Beautiful. Now, this one is just on the center back. You can put as many of these loops hooking onto clear buttons at the waistline, as many as you need to get that train picked up. This is one of my favorite ways to do a bustle. It's clean, it's clear, between the clear buttons and the matching thread, it looks good every time. And it's nice and strong. That wasn't so bad. The only thing that you need to watch out for when you're doing this is tangling thread. I personally, whenever I can, use a waxed skein. So that's a pre-waxed thread, pre-cut, because I really want to keep from getting any tangles and knots in my chain, or otherwise you got to start over. One, just because it won't be clean, but also because it won't be strong and there's no way to untangle it. So only thing to watch out for. Otherwise, you can throw as many of these babies in as it takes to get that train lifted up. No sweat. Thanks so much for joining us. Ask me questions, leave us little comments, and we'll see you at the next one.